In a small village deep in the countryside, surrounded by vast meadows that stretched as far as the eye could see and towering mountains that formed a natural barrier, there was a simple farm that seemed to radiate a silent peace, as if it were straight out of a fairy tale. In this land, where time seemed to follow its own rhythm, the afternoons were bathed in soft light, turning golden and orange when the sun began to set, coloring the sky with a beauty that seemed lifted from the paintings of old masters. This magical glow reflected off the gleaming brown coat of Estrela, the Martínez family's horse. The image of this animal, with its silent elegance, was more than just a detail in the landscape. It was a symbol of the tranquility and simple life of the family, a life marked by hard work, but also by the unconditional love that bound each member together. The Martínez farm, though small in size, was rich in life and affection. Don Pedro, the patriarch, woke up every day before dawn to tend to the land and animals. His body, marked by decades of hard labor, moved in sync with the rhythm of the earth. Dona Clara, his wife, was the heart of the home. She had a gentle way of looking at the world, always paying attention to the details of the house, but she also knew how to be firm when necessary. Her smile was like a balm, capable of soothing anyone nearby. Together with their two children, Lucía, a 6-year-old girl, and Santiago, the younger brother, only one, they formed a united and happy family, living simply but with a wealth that transcended material possessions. They were rich in what mattered most: love, mutual respect, and care for the land that sustained them. The presence of Estrela, the horse, added an even more special touch to this farm. He was not just a work animal or a simple companion. Estrela had become part of the family's story. His brown coat, almost golden in the sun, and the white mark on his forehead were unmistakable, making him even more remarkable. Since being brought to the farm, Estrela seemed to have a unique connection with each family member, but his bond with the children was even deeper. Lucía, at 6 years old, was the most attached to the horse. She would spend hours by his side, not only taking care of him but also talking to him as though he were her best friend. Estrela, in turn, seemed to understand the girl in a magical way. He always accompanied her with attentive eyes, responding with soft neighs, as if completely in tune with Lucía's emotions. There was something special about their bond, something that went beyond the usual relationship between a human and an animal. Santiago, the younger brother, still couldn't speak, but he felt an instinctive connection with Estrela. When the horse was near, the baby visibly calmed down. His tiny hands would stretch out to touch him, and Estrela would respond with admirable patience. The sense of serenity that the horse brought to the baby did not go unnoticed by the family. They knew there was something different about Estrela, something that went beyond what a simple animal could offer. It was an autumn morning, and the soft breeze gently caressed the golden leaves of the trees surrounding the farm. The sunlight filtered through the windows of the house, casting dancing shadows on the wooden walls. Don Pedro was in the field, preparing the soil for the new harvest. His shovel cut through the earth with precision, each movement revealing a lifetime of experience and knowledge of the land he loved. Dona Clara was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with the same care and dedication she put into running the house. She knew the day ahead would be long, but she also knew that with patience and hard work, everything would go smoothly. Lucía was helping her mother set the table, arranging simple dishes but made with love. Her young, curious mind was filled with questions about the world around her. She asked about the plants growing on the farm, about the animals in the barn, and even about the blue sky that stretched above her like an infinite backdrop. Santiago, just 1 year old, crawled around the yard, exploring the world in his own way. His gaze was full of curiosity, but he still depended on the protection of the adults and the presence of Estrela, who was always nearby, watching over the baby with a care that seemed almost human. That morning, like many others, life seemed to be in perfect rhythm. Everything was in its place. There was nothing to indicate that anything could go wrong. The sky was clear, the land ready to be cultivated, and the family lived in harmony. But, as we know, fate sometimes acts unpredictably. That seemingly tranquil morning, with its uninterrupted routine, was about to become the turning point in a story that would be etched forever in the memory of the Martínez family. It was a quiet night, with the sky dotted with stars that seemed to shine more brightly than usual. The wind was soft, and the cool evening breeze drifted through the window, bringing a welcome relief after a hot day. Inside the house, the family was preparing for their evening routine. Don Pedro and Dona Clara were sitting at the table, talking about the plans for the following day, while Lucía, her eyes already tired, was getting ready for bed. The small farm, which had often been the backdrop for moments of joy and tranquility, now seemed to take on a melancholic tone. The bedtime routine seemed like the culmination of a perfect day. Santiago, however, was restless. The heat of the night left him uncomfortable, and he couldn't sleep. Dona Clara, always attentive to the details, decided to take him outside where the cool air might help calm him down. She placed the baby in the straw crib beneath a leafy tree, where the air was fresher. Estrela, who was in the stable, watched the scene intently. The horse, as always, seemed more focused on the baby than on anything else happening around him. Something was different that night. Estrela sensed an unease that no one else seemed to notice. Meanwhile, in the barn, Don Pedro was doing a final check on the tools and the hay storage. The oil lamp he had left on was near a pile of hay, but he hadn't noticed the danger it posed. By accident, the lamp fell, and the oil spilled onto the floor. The fire began to spread alarmingly, consuming the hay and quickly growing. In a matter of seconds, the barn was engulfed in flames. Inside the house, the smell of smoke began to seep through the windows, and the smoke quickly filled the air. Dona Clara was the first to realize what was happening. She saw the flames reflected in the window and, with a shout, alerted everyone inside. Panic took over the family, and the question they all asked was, what should they do now? The heat of the fire, which was already beginning to invade the house, left no room for doubt or hesitation. Dona Clara felt panic rise within her, but still managed to keep enough calm to act. She grabbed Lucia, who had wide eyes, terrified by the smoke and the glow of the flames now reflecting on the walls. Pedro, without wasting time, ran toward the door to get a better look at the situation. When he saw the magnitude of the fire, he knew there would be no way to save it without risking their lives. "The fire is spreading too fast," shouted Don Pedro, his voice trembling with the urgency of the situation. "And the stable?" "Estrella," said Clara, now with a racing heart. She turned to him, but the horse was farther away, still in the stable, where the heat was already starting to spread through the dry wood and stacked hay bales. But the sight of the horse, always so calm and serene, was interrupted by a neigh, and that deep sound seemed more like a call. Estrella was feeling something that no one else saw or even imagined. He began to stir in the stable. His breathing grew heavier, as if something was pushing him to act, something beyond reason and human understanding. And it was then that, without hesitation, Estrella acted. With a powerful movement, the horse broke the ropes that held him and, using all his strength, pushed open the stable door with his nose. The sound of splintering wood echoed in the silent night. Estrella wasn't thinking of danger. His eyes were fixed on the house, on the family, and on Santiago's crib, which was so close to death, closer than anyone had imagined. "No! Estrella, come back!" shouted Don Pedro as he saw the horse galloping toward the burning barn. But Estrella did not stop. There was no time to lose. The smoke had already covered the sky, mixing with the bright glow of the flames, which now seemed to be feeding on an unrelenting fury. The heat was unbearable, and the thick air made breathing difficult. Despite it all, Estrella moved forward without a thought, guided by something beyond logic. He knew exactly what he had to do, and he did it with the precision of a being who did not know fear. The barn was chaos. The fire had completely consumed the structure, and the flames were licking the wooden walls, breaking them with violent crashes. The heat was almost unbearable, and the smoke made visibility nearly impossible. Estrella, with his agile body and sharp sight, didn't hesitate. He entered the barn, pushing through the flames with the same determination that had guided his steps since he broke the ropes that had kept him tied. The smell of burning was overpowering, but Estrella stayed on course, his hooves pounding heavily against the ground, which was now covered in ash. His eyes were searching for one thing only: Santiago. The baby was somewhere inside, and Estrella knew he was in danger. There was no time to waste. The smoke thickened with each passing second, and with every breath, the air grew heavier and more suffocating. Estrella, with his unwavering courage, moved forward as though the family's fate depended on it. Finally, he saw the crib made of straw, still standing amid the flames. The blanket covering the baby was scorched, but Santiago was there, his small eyes wide with fear, crying softly. The fear of the fire was no greater than Estrella's need to protect the baby. With his mouth, he pushed the crib out of the danger zone, using his nose to carefully take the blanket. The wood cracked around him, and the flames were so close that it felt like they could engulf everything. But Estrella didn't stop. With the blanket in his teeth, Estrella made a swift, powerful move, lifting the baby carefully with his teeth. His body was hot, his legs moving quickly, but the horse was certain that he was doing the right thing. The sky was still covered in smoke, and the smell of burning surrounded him, but he didn't stop. Estrella ran, jumping through the broken window of the barn, carrying Santiago to safety. They rolled onto the ash-covered ground, but the baby remained safe. The flames were close, towering higher than Estrella could have imagined, but the horse, with his unwavering strength, reached the open field, where the night seemed calmer, cooler. When Estrella emerged from the barn with the baby in his teeth, Pedro and Clara were in shock. They couldn't believe their eyes. Don Pedro, his heart racing, ran toward the horse, while Dona Clara, with tears in her eyes, looked at little Santiago, who was now safe in his father's arms. Though he was breathing weakly, the baby was alive, his tiny body still warm but clearly relieved of his nightmare. "Estrella!" shouted Clara, running toward the horse with trembling hands. She looked at the heroic animal, who was covered in soot, with scorched hooves, but with a serene calm in his eyes. Emotion washed over the family. The pain of thinking they might have lost Santiago transformed into a wave of gratitude that seemed endless. There were no words enough to express what they felt at that moment. Pedro, his eyes filled with tears, hugged his wife and daughter while looking at Estrella, the horse who, heroically, had saved their most precious possession, the life of their son. Estrella remained there, standing tired, but with a peaceful expression, as though he knew his mission had been completed. He didn't need anything more, no praise, no recognition. For him, happiness was in the simple fact of fulfilling his promise, of protecting the family that loved him. And, in some way, everyone around him knew that no words were needed. In the days following the fire, the entire village came together to help rebuild the Martínez farm. Neighbors brought food, materials, and support, offering their hands to lift what the fire had destroyed. Estrella, though exhausted, was treated like a hero. His story spread quickly throughout the region, and soon everyone knew about the sacrifice and courage of the horse who had faced the flames to save a life. But for the Martínez family, Estrella would never just be a hero. He was much more than that. He was part of the family, a being who, with his instinct and loyalty, had given his own life to save that of little Santiago. They knew that nothing could repay what he had done, but in their gratitude, they gave Estrella what he needed most: love, respect, and the certainty that his loyalty would always be returned. And so, Estrella's story became a legacy, passed down from generation to generation. The Martínez farm was rebuilt, but the true strength of that family didn't come from the land or the house. It came from the courage, faith, and unity that held them together. Estrella, the heroic horse, became an eternal symbol of bravery, loyalty, and unconditional love. The memory of what he did that night would be remembered forever, as a tale of heroism that no one would ever forget. And so, life continued. But the mark Estrella left on the Martínez family would never fade. He had been more than just a simple horse. He had been a guardian angel.